Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Amanda Ray. Sorry, I realized that I didn't mention a few things in this video that I wanted to mention, so you might see me popping in here and there kind of explaining some things for this podcast episode, but I really just wanted to talk about the fact that a lot of people think that if we ignore the issue, then there is no issue, but just because we're ignoring the issue, it doesn't mean that there is no issue, and a lot of the times it's a how do I explain this? So what we're going to be talking about today is obviously how women are blamed in these types of cults and how blame is always placed on the women because men don't want that accountability. But I think that a lot of men in these cults, and after they leave the cults, they keep blaming the women, or they also refuse to see the issue because they think that they're not affected by this issue. But the reality is the men are also affected very heavily and deeply by this issue of placing all the blame on the women, because it honestly creates the type of man who lacks empathy, and they are no longer capable of loving deeply, meaningfully, and they'll find themselves searching for fulfillment their entire life. But they don't put the two and two together as to the fact that the plain simple thing of them lacking accountability and having the attitude of doing no wrong, creating the narcissism and so you create this narcissistic personality that lacks empathy. They don't realize that they're also lacking empathy deep within themselves, as far as so they can no longer, sorry, I feel like I'm butchering this, but basically they can no longer have the capacity to have empathy to women or to their children. So now they no longer have the ability to even have deep connections, and this is also why I think you find these men searching for material things a lot of the times. They're seeking their whole life, but they're never finding, and the fulfillment is never there. And they don't understand that the big issue is that it's themselves. It's within themselves. But a lot of these men, I've seen them live their entire life and then dying in the order, never finding that fulfillment within themselves, never finding value in having deep connections with their children or with their wives, because they themselves never knew themselves. But I think one of the core reasonings is because they build this whole religion and this whole cult on the backs of these women, while they spit on these women and act like the women are the problem, and they place the blame and the issues on the women so that they never actually acknowledge what the issue is. So does that make sense? Like, yes, the women physically, you can see they are the ones that are getting the worst situation ever, because they're the ones having the kids, they're the ones taking the blame, they're the ones slut shaming and getting ridiculed, and they end up doing it to themselves because it's done to them so much. But because of this, the men are also lacking hugely because of that type of society. You get this world where women get this super huge burden, and it's really far on this side of the spectrum, and then men are on the complete opposite side of the spectrum. There's no balance. It's just the woman's role is the accountability and the man's role is no accountability, and so the abuse and the cycle continues, especially because no one is addressing the issue. I have to breathe for a second. Another issue is, a big problem is, and we'll talk about this in sexual abuse, you see it more often. It's just harder to not see in sexual abuse and victims of sexual abuse. When we place the blame of the sexual abuse on the victim, then the issue never will be solved, because that's not where the issue is. And it's funny that it's not funny. This is not a funny thing, but it's just interesting to see that it's just delusional that all of these men in these big religions are like constantly blaming the victim and trying to hold the victim accountable for what the perpetrator's doing. Don't you think that if that was the issue, then that would be addressed and it would be done, right? But no, the problem is the victim is not the issue. And hang on. So by blaming the victim over and over and over, we just make the problem worse, because we're not holding the actual perpetrator accountable. So you blame the victim, the perpetrator's going to still go out and find other victims. So I don't understand. I cannot tell you why people so badly want to blame the victim and not the perpetrator. I think that it just stems from this hierarchy of just subconsciously men can do no wrong. In a lot of these cults, it's a man can do no wrong type of mentality, because the men are the leaders, the men are the, rule makers, the men are the ones with the priesthood holders, and they're the ones that are going to be bringing you all to heaven. They've created this illusion that men hold this crazy power that's not real. It's not that just because you're born with a penis you have more power, but they've created that illusion, and they keep the facade, and to keep that they have to make sure that women are blamed for anything that a man does, because man can do no wrong. They create this false illusion that men have this crazy amount of power and righteousness, and it's to me, if you ask me, it's all just ego and narcissism. That's all it is. But they've done a good job of creating this hierarchy of men creating the rules and the laws, and when men are creating the rules and the laws, then they get to decide who gets blamed for what the men are doing. Obviously, the issue continues. There becomes more victims because they're blaming the victims, which are not the ones that we need to be holding accountable. We need to be holding accountable the older men that are doing these things, but they don't want to be held accountable. They'd rather place the blame on a child because they are too childish to be held accountable. I also want to discuss how there's like an imbalance where women are raised to constantly question themselves and constantly not trust their intuition, because they always have to have every important decision they make has to be ran by a man of power, like a numbered man, a priesthood holder, maybe in other religions. But so the women are raised, they're not encouraged to really just be themselves, because to a man, it takes power from the men to see women be boldly themselves and to be strong and to be powerful, because if a woman can make the decisions for themselves, then that takes away from the man making the decision that the man wants for them. So they don't want women to be raised to even think that they can make the right choices, because the men want that power. They want the choices that the women make to be promoting the man. So they make sure that from a young age, the woman doesn't even get a chance. She has that freedom stripped from her, so that she no longer even understands what it's like to have intuition, because it's been stripped from her. Now, you look at the men, though, on the opposite side. The men aren't raised with that same type of strict, the men aren't raised with not being allowed to trust their intuition, because the men are raised with, oh, one day you're going to hold the priesthood, one day you're going to be able to say the prayers, maybe even baptizing people, you're going to get a number, you're going to be the one that's the head of your house. So it's kind of a crazy imbalance how women can't even make a decision for themselves because they've had that freedom stripped from them. And then the men, it's completely on the other side, where you're going to be the head of your own house. You're going to be a god over your own world. You're going to be hot shit. So if you can imagine how completely different, they can be the same kids in the same family, right? Same household, same parents, but end up completely different because the woman is so shamed just for being a woman, and the man is so put on a pedestal. Neither of these are healthy. Neither of them. The woman ends up being very, very insecure, doubting herself, never knows how to even make a decision for herself unless there's a man involved. She starts to devalue herself without anyone even doing it for her. And then the man starts to praise himself and put himself on a pedestal for doing absolutely nothing. Also, I saw this a lot in the cult. Men that were terrible men, pedophiles, abusers, they had this arrogance about themselves as if they were God. And it's all based upon the structure of the cult. The narrative that they created in the order was to be pro-men and anti-women. And we'll be talking about that a lot in this video. The craziest part of it is that the women are the reason why the cult survives, because they're able to... Who keeps calling me? I swear, every time I film, everyone and their dog just wants to get a hold of me. BRB. I swear to God, if someone else calls me... But I think I only have a few more things to kind of reiterate before we get into this video. Well, this is the video. We are in the video. We are in the thick of it. But I just wanted to say these things because I said so much in the video, but I wanted to cover these things as well. The core issue, and I want to make sure that any order women watching this knows this. And I know that a lot of people just judge me because I left the order, and I mean, that's a really good manipulative tactic, to be able to just talk really bad about me and make my reputation really bad so that no one will trust anything I say. That's a really good thing, because then no one will listen to me. But there are those few people who do watch, and for those order members who do watch, I just want, especially these women, I want you to know that without you, the order would be nothing. You bring so much life, literally life, to the order, children to the order. You are the reason why it keeps growing. And the fact that they belittle and put you down to the extent that they do is very telling. Because wouldn't you think that someone who brings so much to the work of the Lord would get to reap the benefits, would get to have the blessings, would be praised for bringing so much to the work of the Lord, rather than put down and ridiculed and shamed and sexually abused, all the things that have happened to women in the order? It is insane to think that the people who bring the most get the least. It's just so twisted, and it's because the order was never meant to be pro women. It just wasn't. It was meant to be pro the leadership and pro the men. And that's why women will always be at the bottom. That's why the only way to get out of it is to realize your value and your worth, and realize the power that you actually have. So hopefully that's all I have to say on this microphone, because you can't really see me, and I know that's kind of annoying that you can't see my face, but if I forget anything, then I might pop back in and talk a little bit more. But I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I hope you guys figure out that you are worthy. Okay, bye. Hi. Is my head cut off? Come on. Oh God. How's that? Good? Okay. This is as good as it's gonna get, okay? I have some really important episodes coming up on my podcast about past relationships that you guys are not gonna wanna miss. I really am gonna get vulnerable and real about the past relationships and how they went and how they've gone. But to be honest, I don't know if I'm ready for the world to hear it. So I told myself, I'm like, they're already pre-recorded, but I'm like nervous for, I guess because I still am processing the past relationships that I've been in, and so it's hard for me to just air it out to the world. I literally just rented this room at this coffee shop, and there's like a glass door, and everyone can see me just sitting on the floor with the camera. As you can see by the title, we're going to be talking about Let's Blame the Women. If you watched my Handmaid's Tale video, by the way, hi, my name is Amanda Ray, and I escaped a polygamous cult when I was 17, almost 18 years old. And if you want the videos on my escape and how I survived, those are linked in the description box down below always. But I also have linked in the description box down below my Handmaid's Tale video, and it really describes in depth what we're going to be talking about today. But it compares it to the Handmaid's Tale and how like similar the cult is to the Handmaid's Tale series. If you're interested in that, go watch it. Today I'm not going to be describing every single thing that the order does, but I'm gonna talk about how the cult I grew up in really was able to turn everything around on the woman and blame the woman. Because my number one question that I get is, why don't people leave? Why do women stay? Has your mom left? Why is your mom still in there? And it used to really frustrate me. Like, how come you don't understand? Like, it's not like my mom likes the abuse. It's not like these women like the disinjustice, or, you know what I mean? So, but I get it, because we do it all the time. We look at a relationship from the outside looking in. We're like, why didn't she leave him? Or we look at something, when you're outside of it, it's hard to understand what the nitty gritty of it is. And I wanted to tell this story. This is a true story of a kitten. And I know kitten and humans are different, but there's a similarity in the way the kitten was treated. So a cat has babies. And for whatever reason, the mom really hated one of the babies. She would hiss at it. She would attack it. One of the kittens, she just would she wouldn't let the kitten eat from her. And maybe it was because it was the runt, I don't know. Comment down below if you know more about this, if maybe you're a veterinarian. But the people had to bottle feed the kitten to keep it alive because the mother just didn't want it to survive, basically. And so what happened was the kittens that were loved were more lovey towards others and were more easy to get along with and just well nurtured, whereas the kitten that was attacked by its mother would hiss at you, would kind of recreate the habits that the mother gave to it. And it's almost like the kitten knew in its mind that it was like not loved or not lovable, so it would like kind of stay by itself and it wouldn't trust anyone, and then the kitten got really, really sick. And it was like the immune system was going down, and it was like the cat was going to die if it wasn't given love. And I'm giving this example because when I watched this happen, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the order. Sorry, I know a lot of people are like, how does that relate to the order? But listen, when I was in the order, I was told, you're never going to make it if you try to go to college. You're not smart enough. This is your only purpose. If you can't do this, then what is your purpose? If you're going to leave the order, you might as well go kill yourself. Like, this is real things that were taught to me. So my value was very low, and I was also taught that my value really depended on if I was going to get married and the man is going to bring me to heaven. Like, I can't go to heaven unless I marry a worthy man. So a lot of things are being fed to me as a kid, and then I believe them. I start devaluing myself. My inner voice becomes the voices of people around me putting me down, and I go down this path of really depressed, not knowing my worth, not seeing my worth, thinking that my worth and value is clear down here. Do you see the correlation? It's kind of like those first moments in your childhood are very, very important, and we carry it. We get to a point where we carry it into our future with subconsciously. So I just want you to keep that in mind as we're going through these, dissecting all the examples of women being, put down and women being blamed, and how these cults really can control and manipulate women. And they wouldn't survive if they couldn't. And the reason why I want to talk about it is because we need to dissect it and understand it to be able to move on and change from it, right? So we're going to do that today. Okay, the order is not pro-women. No, it is not pro-women. It is very much pro-man. The men are the ones that lead it. They decide the decisions. They get the numbered man. They get to have the priesthood. The women aren't allowed to have the priesthood. A lot of the times the ones giving blessings and prayers is men, because women cannot. And so that's the insane part of it, is that the women are the backbone of the church, but they are treated as beneath dirt. And I think it's because if the women knew what their value was, the church would be nothing. So they have to create this illusion that the women will never make it without the man, because otherwise the woman wouldn't need the man, because they don't need the man. So I'm going to give you examples to show how they do this. So they make sure that and for me as a child growing up in this cult, from a very young age, it was taught and bred into my brain, tie into the one above. No decision I made, no big decision like school, who you're going to marry, work, it all had to tie into the one above, meaning a man. So you are from a very young age programmed to not even trust your own intuition as a woman. You must run your thoughts by a man, and the man will tell you if it's the correct or incorrect way of thinking. So you are programmed that you are not holy enough, smart enough, of value enough to even think for yourself. You need to run it by a man. So then in your brain, you're already, as a young woman, devaluing being a woman. Because as a woman, no woman is tying into other women's, you're tying into a man. So as a woman, you can't trust yourself or other women because you are less than the man of the house, the head of the house, the leader, the one above. So there's one thing, and that's a very big thing to put onto a child, because then as an adult, they're not going to trust their own intuition as a woman, because you're not taught that women can be trusted. So you distrust yourself. The next thing they do is they shame women. When there's sexual assault, the woman is to blame. When there's abuse, the woman is to blame. A lot of the times I would hear, oh, well, this happened to you. What were you wearing? Well, even though it's an adult man preying on a young child who's a little girl, oh, what were you wearing? The blame is always shifted to the woman. and then it creates this idea that the men do no wrong and the men have no accountability and the women bear the burden of the accountability. We then have shame and guilt for other people's actions put upon us. So now we have two things, right? We can't trust our intuition. We don't trust ourselves. We have to tie into the man because the man is above us. And then we are shamed and ridiculed for anything that the man does to us. So now it's creating in our brain a life of distrusting ourselves, shaming ourselves, hating ourselves, thinking that we are the problem constantly. We're constantly the problem because the men are making it be like, yep, you're the problem, because the men don't want to be the problem. So they're gonna belittle the women to the point where the women believe that they're the problem so that the men do not have to have accountability. And it works. If you devalue a child, it's gonna work, obviously, because they are a child. And these are the adults doing it because it's insane that they're expecting the children to have more responsibility than the grown-ass men who are objectifying and lusting after children. It's so disgusting. And I really think this is for another episode, but I think it all stems from narcissism. That's for another episode. So the next thing they do is, and this goes for kind of all children in cults, but abuse is the child's fault. Oh, this was something that was said a lot to me. As I'm being beat, you brought this upon yourself. So then, as being a young woman in this cult, being raised to, I can't trust myself, I am to blame for any sexual abuse that happens to me, I am to blame for any abuse. Then as a 17-year-old getting abused by my dad, held down and abused, and my mom saying, you did this to yourself. And a part of me was like, yeah, I did do this to myself. Even though you are physically doing it to me, I did it to myself. Even though you are on top of me, physically beating me, I did it to myself. It's such a weird place to live, right? Everything bad that happens to you is your own fault. Anyone negative towards you is your own fault. And it creates if you stay in that mindset, you cannot grow and be worthy of anything else because you yourself don't believe you're worthy of anything else. So you stay in that mess. I did want to bring up an example of how the difference is as a young woman versus a young man. So I did something, same thing that my brother did. I got abused, I got beat for doing this thing. The brother got praised. So I don't know if you guys want to know the details of the story, but it was basically, there was a TV show that all the family was watching, and I knew there was a naughty part coming up. It wasn't even that bad. It was like She's the Man, where she like pulls her shirt up, and I knew, but that was bad in our community, even though it didn't show anything. So I heard and turned the TV off, and my mom ran up to me and she smacked me and stood me in the corner. I got beat for it. Same thing happened, I'll tell you the context. Me and my mom, I was older, watching the Bachelorette, where it's one woman and multiple men. My mom loved that show. My brother walks in and turns it off and just walks out. You know what my mom did? I was waiting. I was like, go get him. Go get him. Do what you did to me. She was like, no, he's probably right. We shouldn't be watching this. So like, men can do no wrong, where women, everything is wrong. And you're raised in that environment to respect a man for doing absolutely nothing. And even sometimes respecting them for doing really terrible things and blaming other people for their actions. So it becomes this weird dynamic of, yep, I did this is my fault that I'm getting beat, you brought this upon yourself. But then when a man is sexually abusing the woman, oh well, what did she do? What did she do? You did nothing wrong. She was wearing spaghetti straps. It's so delusional. And then as a woman growing up in it, you have no self-worth. None. I know that a lot of women have thoughts of leaving the order. Probably every single one does. But they don't think that they're going to make it on the outside because they have been beaten down so much to believe that they're the problem. They're a slut, they're being shamed, they deserve what's happening to them, and if they go out in the real world, they're never gonna make it, and they truly believe it. And that's the thing, it's not true, but if you believe it, it is true. And it's actually kind of common in the world. It's not even just in the cult, in the world. If you were raised with parents who really belittled you, demeaned you, devalued you, you as an adult are going to struggle with those self-hate, self-devaluing thoughts. Now it's not even them doing it anymore. You've gotten away from them, but you're still doing it to yourself because they've ingrained it in you. You have to be so careful with what your thoughts are of yourself and ask yourself, is this a thought because I was beaten into submission as a child, or I was basically programmed to think that I was worthless? It is so not true. The reason they do that, though, is multiple reasons. I think sometimes parents are very have a lot of their own insecurities and they project it onto their kids. But then I also think there's in this cult mindset, the narcissist knows that to get the most out of you, they need to devalue you so that you think that you are not worthy, and you will build him up to something that he doesn't deserve. But if he makes you believe that he has the power and you don't, then that's all he needs. He just needs the illusion. Because if you think about it, without the woman, there would be nothing. These women are bearing children every year. They're going to work full time. They're paying rent. They're doing more than a man is even capable of. Yet the man has the power, and they don't want the women to know how powerful they are, because then the women are free. The freedom lies in the truth, so they keep the truth from the women. They need the woman to not have power, because then they lose their power, and they're selfish. They don't care if the women are depressed. They don't care if the women are dying, they don't care. They just need the women to not know how valuable they are so that they stay and keep allowing them to devalue them and to take and take and take. Because if they did care, don't you think that they would want the women to feel valued? Don't you think they'd want the women to be equal? They don't care. They care about what they're getting out of the situation. They see you, and some people say this like, oh, but they love me because they want me around and they're fighting for me to stay in the order. They want me to go to heaven. Maybe some are like that, but for the most part, they don't love you. They love the idea of what you can do for them. They love what they can get from you. They may not even have capabilities of loving you, but they love the energy and the money and the time and the admiration that you give to them, because it gives them that ego and the validation that they seek so much externally, because they're not even able to seek it within themselves, because they're not capable. That's why they're also not capable of loving you, because they don't love themselves. Deep down, that's the truth. In order to love yourself deeply, I think you have to have empathy, to really have a deep sense of love, not just an arrogant ego sense of love, a deep sense of love for your human soul, your humanness, and then you have to be able to love others as well. But they're not capable of that. That's why they don't care if you're suffering. They don't care if they're abusing you, as long as you give them what they need for their little validation seeking that they have to get. And it's never enough. That's why these men, they seem like they're always searching. They're never finding. It's never enough. There's never enough money. There's never enough power. There's never enough wives. The leader has 27 wives. 2 of them are his sisters. 3 of them are his nieces. I always was like, what? Is it not enough? Is it not enough? No, it's never enough, because there's no fulfillment. There's no deep sense of love. That's nothing real. The thing that it bothered me so much is when women say, how am I going to make it with my mom? How am I going to make it on the outside without your father? Other women, how am I going to make it outside without a man supporting me? What support? You pay the rent. You pay the bills. Your kids are paying rent when they're underage. You're having to get pregnant every single year and then go right back to work. You got to go to church every Sunday. You got to kiss this man's ass. How is leaving him going to not be freeing? He has you in chains. He is the one who would be nothing without you, because you give so much. And you give things that he's not even capable of giving. Yet we have this delusion of, I can't make it to heaven without you. Oh, Paul Kingston holds the keys to heaven. No, he doesn't. He just holds the illusion that you are worth nothing without him. I mean, the simple fact that in the Bible it says not to marry your sisters, not to be with your sisters, and he's doing that. But this is the crazy part. You guys have convinced yourself that God told him to do that. And I remember getting direction on things when I was in the order and being fed all these lies. So then you start to dream up all these lies. I think that's why they use the dream analogy, because it's like, just like what I was saying too, when someone's saying something so much to you, you start to believe it. So then you start to dream it. But the reality is, like, we're supposed to just trust this leadership that says that you just happen to be born in the right place and you just have to give me all of your money and all of your children and all of your devotion, and then in the afterlife you'll get all the blessings in return. If someone out in the world told you that, hey, if you come join me over here, then you'll reap all the benefits in the afterlife, you'd be like, nuh-uh, you're crazy. But then if Paul's saying the same exact things, you believe that. So you just have to decide what narration you want to live your life by. And is it actually benefiting you? Does he actually care? Actually, take it out. It doesn't even matter if he cares or not. Do you feel valued where you are? Why or why not? Men can't bear children. Men can't do all the things the women are taking on as responsibilities. And the number one thing men can't do in this cult is take accountability. So they put that on the women as well. The women are so much stronger than they can even imagine. But don't let them know, because then they'll be set free. And freedom for the women means less money and power for Paul. And that's a no-no. So he wants to keep you in your little box. As soon as you as a woman realize your value and how much power you have, you will finally be set free. So let's not blame the women, because also at the end of the day, it's not helping the men either to not be held accountable. It's not helping the men to grow and be a good, kind, genuine human being by enabling them to treat women like shit. How does that help them? It doesn't. It makes them have this arrogance where they also think that they don't need to be a father. They're absent fathers. That's why it's so common in the world, because no one's holding them accountable. Not that it's our responsibility to make them look in the mirror, but when there's so many enablers allowing this type of behavior to happen, it's going to continue. So we need to stop allowing it, and we don't deserve to be around that. So let's not blame the women. Let's turn the mirror on to the men. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for watching. I just felt compelled to make this video today, and I hope that it at least enlightened one young woman. If it helped one young woman today, then that was the goal. I appreciate you guys so much, and I hope to see you on Cult a Cup of Coffee on Sunday. Remember, know your worth. If you get anything out of this video, listen to your inner voice and make sure that you agree with it, and ask yourself why or why not do you agree with your voice in your head. I think another good question too is to think about your younger self and ask yourself, would you want your younger, like a little girl, would you talk to the little girl that you were? Like picture you as a little girl. Would you say the things to that little girl that you say to yourself? Why or why not? Answer in the comments down below. If you feel like sharing, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you on Sunday for Cult a Cup of Coffee. Bye.